White people voted for this democracy.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't, Sissy. No, they didn't.
Yes.
A handful. Did you vote ANC in 1994?
I'm not talking about the ANC. Please listen. In 1992, white people had a referendum to decide whether they're going to allow the vote. And we gave the vote because we thought that what was happening was
wrong. It wasn't yours to give. Do you acknowledge that? It was not your country to take in the first place. But we acknowledge the fact that you are here. We acknowledge that you are here. I think it's about owning the truth of your own story with all of its complexity. So for me, as an educated middle-class woman, I know that when I walk into spaces, I carry a certain currency that is not carried by my brother who can't pee in a toilet that I peed in when I went to Wits.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But at the same time, I also acknowledge that when I do walk into spaces, for example, going into very poor, disenfranchised communities, I also have to acknowledge that the dysfunction that I see that exists in those communities is part of my historical baggage. I carry it within me.
What's up, my good and lovely people? I'm happy to see you once again. Welcome back to the channel. And in case you're coming across this channel for the first time, I'm highly and warmly welcoming you to this small corner of the internet, in a place where we learn, we inspire and motivate ourselves and tell our own stories from our very own perspective. So I came across, I was lucky to come across a certain video of a heated debate or a discussion, an open-ended discussion that took place in South Africa. And I just thought, first thing that came to my mind is I wanted to share this with you, my people, because you know that anytime I find something educative, inspiring, I will always bring it to you, so I don't have to, consume that alone, because I'm generous enough. So I'm going to let us watch this video together, learn from it, and at the end of this video, we'll have a few things to talk about. So right here is the video.
White people voted for this democracy.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't.
Yes, they did.
No, they didn't, Sissy. No, they didn't.
Yes.
A handful. Did you vote ANC in 1994?
I'm not talking about the ANC. Please listen. In 1992, white people had a referendum to decide whether they're going to allow the vote. And we gave the vote because we thought that what was happening was wrong.
It wasn't yours to give. Do you acknowledge that? It was not your country to take in the first place. But we acknowledge the fact that you are here. We acknowledge that you are here. I think it's about owning the truth of your own story with all of its complexity. So for me, as an educated middle-class woman, I know that when I walk into spaces, I carry a certain currency that is not carried by my brother who can't pee in a toilet that I peed in when I went to Wits.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
But at the same time, I also acknowledge that when I do walk into spaces, for example, going into very poor, disenfranchised communities, I also have to acknowledge that the dysfunction that I see that exists in those communities is part of my historical baggage. I carry it within me. It's in my family, it's in my heart, it's in my choices. And what is worrisome is seeing people who own so much power in terms of land, in terms of resources, in terms of people you employ, in terms of the language that you've taken from these people and used to create a nation. You own so much power, but do you concede that? Do you acknowledge that? Do you own that? If you owned a little bit of that, it would be easy to come to the table with you. It would be easy to acknowledge death is death, pain is pain. I mean, there were 350 years of conscription in this country. It's only one generation of white men who didn't go into the military. How much pain exists in white families? I'd be willing to hear that more than I'm willing to hear that your pain is your pain only, because everybody in this room is carrying pain.
But I don't believe the debate from our side. 20 years into this democracy, the debate from our side has never been to negate your pain, nor has it ever been about saying that we want back to where we came from. Is it your country?
It's all of our countries, but acknowledge it's all of ours. It's all of ours.
People wearing this beret are saying we don't belong here.
Okay, no one can hear you at this point, so I'd like to actually have a conversation, and I'll ask for tolerance in this room, please. Tolerance. All right, Sinet?
What I'm saying is that I don't think the problem is with people on the ground, even the people sitting here. People who govern and politicians are determining the success of what is happening on the ground. We have rhetoric where people go on stages and say the colonists must go and we stole the land and we stole the mines. The Brits took the mines. Buddha never had mines. And we can't keep on having that rhetoric and move forward. Every time I switch on a television or I put on a radio and Julius Malema says that we don't belong here, and what is happening? It's a problem. You cannot preach reconciliation to one segment of the country and preach empowerment to the other segment.
All right.
There's a vast difference between, and I agree with you, there's a vast difference between rhetoric that's used to manipulate the population and sway people and the truth. Ne? And I would be interested in hearing how white people process the emotional baggage of what their ancestors did. I would be interested in trying to understand what it did to white families. How much silence did white people have to cope with? How did white people build a shield around themselves to be able to deal with the system in which whiteness operated all these years? That's an emotional conversation. That's a delicate conversation. I'd be willing to do the work of trying to unravel that, because right now as a black person, I'm trying to do the work of unraveling my own baggage, my own historical baggage. I think when white people start to do that work, then we'll start to begin the project of trying to understand how all of us belong to this place. But you can't erase history. We can't pretend the violence didn't happen. We can't pretend colonialism didn't happen. We can't pretend people weren't slaves. We can't pretend our people are not poor. It happened. It happened. I'd be willing to hear white people say, you know what, it was Kak trying to pretend that this situation was normal. But I'm not hearing white people do that work.
All right.
What would that be?
All right. When you return, a poetic moment. Don't go away.
Africa is a fractured mirror, a paradox of schizophrenic selves who don't talk to one another, who coexist together but don't live with each other. And this is the time when you can become the greatest substance of your dreams, unless you live in a shack and don't speak English and don't know what this poem means. Tell me how it's possible for people who walk on gold to not know how to read. South Africa is an old-fashioned mutt who knows how to sing and knows even better how to cuss, who knows how to pray when she's about to run out of luck, who knows how to laugh really hard when the tears have run her into a rut, who knows that race is a farce because when the lights are off, everybody's
There's a lot of anger, there's a lot of, I don't hear hope yet. I don't know about you, but I don't hear hope yet.
I hear it. I hear it. Just us being here, having this conversation together, getting to a space that we need to get to as a nation. It will take a very long time. It's not child's work. For me to sit and listen to Sunette, listen to Pierre, listen to Sisonke and to Lebu, and hear the various voices and digest the message that comes from them, I feel pained. I feel their pain. But at the same time, I feel there's hope because we're talking about it. We put a plaster on a gunshot wound in this country. That's what we did. And that needs to stop. We need to talk to each other and then come to a space of understanding.
Because you're with the EFF.
Yes, I am with the EFF.
Explain that to me.
Well, I explained in a simple fashion that in this country we've got more than 70% of the nation that's living in utter poverty. And if you go into the townships and especially in the squatter camps and you say how our children are living, we're talking about kids. We're not talking about black, white, color. We're talking about kids. So when I look at economic freedom fighters, we are looking at changes this country to bring it into a social system where there will be no class, where the state can take control and we can live in a society where everybody can be brought up to the same level. The thing of the Rainbow Nation that did not work, reconciliation can only work if we both reconcile. You cannot have Nelson Mandela giving forgiveness for a racist group of people that oppressed black people in the apartheid era and say, let us forgive them. They don't come forward and say, yes, we accept your forgiveness, let's reconcile with each other. They don't do that. We still have people in the audience here. We still have people in the audience here, like a gentleman there when she was talking about the black people being more educated and can actually contest for a position. I had a comment say, yeah, let's kill them. It's those comments that makes people to be killed on farms also. Because when you undermine a black person in this country longer, they are going to kill you.
I'm Myrtle Wetboy and I'm from the South African Domestic Workers Union. It's not about color. It's not about whether I'm a colored. It's whether I'm a human being. Yeah. And I think we need to do that. Do you know the pain of a domestic worker? Do you know what it is to be isolated in the backyard of employers? To sit there when the employer go out with their beautiful cars and I remain in the backyard. I was there in the apartheid years. But one man came out and he forgave. And that time, when I was in the struggle, I did not say I was a colored. I did not say Mandela is black. We were fighting for freedom. That is what we were doing. I did not classify myself as a colored. And when Comrade Mandela came out, he said there's black and there's white. And since that day I walked that path. I am black. And I am proud of it. If we want to free ourselves, we must free ourselves from this color thing. We're not going to become free because we are bitter.
We are oppressed even in our working place. Our employers don't recognize us. We raise the children. But you find that at the end, you dismiss, you are stealing, my pant is missing, my sugar is missing.
All right, so you've had that debate, that conversation, that discussion, an open forum, I can call it. And one thing that I must really commend about these people is the fact that emotions are running really high and the tension is there, but they still are capable of sitting down, tolerating each other, and speaking to each other and listening to one another. I think such conversations, such uncomfortable but delicate and critical dialogues and conversations are the ones that we need to encourage, all over, if at all we are, interested in making up for whatever that has happened historically. Now, as you have heard from that video, I think we need to, first of all, put a few things clear. That, first of all, we must not sit down here and lie to ourselves or not even try to accept or ignore the fact that there is history and history happened and it is there for us to acknowledge that it took place. White people need to come clean to accept that, of course, oppression happened. Atrocities in different ways, in different forms, were done on black people. Slavery took place. Any other kind of oppression was done by white people to black people. We have always been the victims of the historical injustices and atrocities of white people in this continent of Africa and beyond. If we first come out clear, both sides of the coin, the black and the so-called white, and accept that that happened, that is the first step towards making things up. Another thing I want to put clear here is white people also need to accept that they are the visitors to the continent of Africa. They came, they grabbed, they vandalized, they stole, and they need to accept that they have not given anything to black people in Africa and outside of Africa. Those that are living outside of Africa and those that are living inside of the continent of Africa. White people have not given black people anything. And especially talking about the situation in Africa and, for example, in South Africa, they cannot claim to have given any rights, any privileges, any land, anything to black people because we are the Africans. They are not in any moral position to give anything to us in Africa. It is not theirs to give at all, at all, at all. You tell me how land in South Africa, 70% of privately owned farmland belongs to white people. A white people that are a minority of less than 15% of a population of over 60 million people. How did that happen? Do they want to tell us they bought the land? Did they come with the land from Europe? They stole the land. They grabbed the land. And Africans during the apartheid rule were put into concentration camps and they had enough of land for themselves. They had all they could have. And see, in places like South Africa and Southern Africa in general, and just even in parts of East Africa, you look at how white people try to justify how much they should be in Africa, how much they are Africans, because of all they have managed to acquire from Africa. Now they cannot imagine losing all that they got for free, and that is so valuable. But on the other hand, they are all over trying to discourage black people from even attempting to find themselves in Europe, despite the fact that we know that the only thing that keeps pulling Africans to Europe is that Africans are following the resources that have been vandalized and stolen from this continent have been used to develop those other places. And now they are longing for that. So this was really a heated argument, but I have always said in many of my previous videos, there are a few steps I really believe should be followed if things are to be made right. And the first thing is probably acknowledging the injustices and apologizing for that. But before we go, this comes before forgiveness, because before we black people can even forgive anyone, is anyone really willing to acknowledge the atrocities, the injustices, and ask for forgiveness? That is the biggest question. Another thing, let's talk about reparations and paying back what possibly could be, because talk about the lives that were lost. Can anything really ever pay? But at least there are reparations that we can talk about, we can discuss, that black people in Africa can get. But I think of all those steps, the most important one is this: that the white people of today must stop treating the black people of today how white people of the previous years treated the black people of the previous times. This was such an interesting debate, and I don't know what you think about this. Let me know what you think about this in the comment section below. Give this video a thumbs up and share this video with your friends and your family. And please subscribe to this channel if you have not done that just yet. So until next time, I will really be happy to see you in my next video. Peace out.